Morning light filtered through the curtains by the window. It was quiet, only the sound of birds and distant cars passing by. I slowly exhaled, standing in the bungalow's living room. In my hand was a key, the one I'd received just yesterday. The cold metal pressed against my palm, making the reality feel undeniably real. 9 years. That number echoed deep in my chest. Days filled with endless work, weekends and holidays included. I'd reviewed my savings account countless times, counting how much more I needed to reach my dream amount. Someday, I'll own my own home. That was the only hope that kept me going. The furniture was still sparse, but that was okay. There were no voices here, no footsteps but my own. Only my time flowed through this space. I placed a mug on the kitchen shelf. The aroma of coffee rose into the air. Breathing in that scent, I finally allowed myself to smile. I had finally reclaimed my own life, but the peace wouldn't last long. At that moment, I didn't know this yet. What comes next will shatter everything she's worked for. If someone you trusted betrayed you, could you fight back? Let's find out. Morning light passed through the curtains, softly illuminating the grain of the wooden floor. Silence. For 9 years, it was what I'd wanted more than any sound. I held the mug in both hands, gazing out the window. The furniture was still minimal. Cardboard boxes remained stacked in the corner. Yet this small bungalow finally felt like my own place. My eyes drifted to the garden outside. A young tree stood there. Its trunk was still thin, still fragile, but I believed its roots were spreading firmly beneath the soil. This house and I were finally putting down roots. That small certainty warmed my heart. A space no one could take from me. Mine alone. The thought made my throat tighten with emotion. For so long, I'd lived for my family, working 2 jobs when my scholarship wasn't enough, draining my own tuition account to cover my brother's business losses. Each time, I believed the words, "I'll pay you back someday," but no one ever did. What came back was silence, and faces that took everything for granted. Still, I didn't give up. Little by little, I built my savings, enduring my boss's sarcasm. With each raise, I whispered to myself, someday, I will own my own home. And today, this small key had finally become proof of that dream. When I placed my hand against the wall, I felt a faint warmth. This house was on my side, quiet, honest, and it would never betray me, or so I thought. At that moment, my phone on the table buzzed. Mom glowed on the screen. The instant I saw the incoming call, a knee stirred in my chest. Among the list of numbers like a string of digits, only my mother's name felt unbearably heavy. For years now, every time the phone rang, my heart would leap. The premonition that something might be taken from me had seeped into my body like a conditioned reflex. For a moment, my finger hesitated, but refusing would only lead to more trouble. So I pressed the call button. "Ellis, you've moved already." I saw the photos. What a cute house. Behind my mother's voice, I could hear dishes clattering. Probably the kitchen back at home. The smell of that house, its air, everything was plastered deep in my memory. A home where laughter and commands became indistinguishable. I had no intention of going back there. Her voice was bright, the same tone as always, but I knew something was lurking beneath it. That saccharine sweetness that always preceded a request, a demand disguised as concern. "Thanks. I'm still settling in, but it's finally done." "Oh, that's good to hear." A few seconds of silence. Then her voice dropped slightly. "Listen, I have a favor to ask." An uneasy feeling rang quietly in my chest. "A favor?" "Yes, the family is planning to move to a bigger house in the suburbs. When I talked to the bank, they said the loan would go through immediately if it's in your name." My fingers froze around the cup. The warmth drained from my hands. "In my name?" "Yes. It's for the family. Your father agrees too. That house would be perfect for Brooks's children to grow up in." My mother's voice was smooth, like she was wearing a mask of good intentions. That was the most frightening part, because underneath that mask was someone who genuinely believed she was right. "Wait, I'm not involved in this. I just bought my own house." "I know, but we just use your name. I'll handle all the paperwork. You won't have to do anything." You won't have to do anything. Those words scraped against the back of my brain. They had always made me do something, while calling it helping each other. Mom, that means using my credit information. Having someone else sign is illegal. Oh, you're being dramatic. We're family, aren't we? Silence. I took a deep breath. Cold air filled my lungs. The word family wound around me like chains. Mom, please don't do this. Why are you so angry? This is for your own good. For my own good? The words echoed in the back of my throat. For your own good. That phrase had been the spell that stole my freedom. After I hung up, the silence returned. But it wasn't the same silence anymore. Even the sound of the wind seemed to carry anxiety. The air in the room had changed. The peaceful silence from before now pressed down like a thin membrane. The coffee on the table had gone cold. Outside the window, wind scattered the leaves. Something was definitely beginning to move. I didn't yet know how to stop it. For the family. Under those words, I'd surrendered myself again and again. But this time would be different. This house belonged to no one else. I had worked, earned, and bought it. It was my life itself. Outside the window, the wind blew. Leaves swayed as afternoon sunlight painted the living room gold. I wouldn't let anyone destroy this scene. I still didn't know exactly what they were plotting. But deep in my chest, warning bells were ringing. This was the beginning of a reinvasion. I set my phone face down on the table, grasping the key again. Its cold touch gleamed in my hand, like it was confirming my resolve. Even by afternoon, the unease in my chest hadn't settled. Since ending the call with my mother, I'd paced the living room repeatedly. Something was already in motion. I felt it instinctively. I drained my coffee and set the cup in the sink. That's when my phone notification chimed. The real estate company's name appeared on the screen. My breath caught. The subject line read, "Confirmation regarding loan contract." My hand trembled as I opened the message. It said, "At the request of Lorraine Morgan, we are attaching additional documents regarding the Riverside Estates property application under the name Ellis Morgan." My name. My mother's request. The words fragmented in my mind. Riverside Estates. That was the upscale suburban housing development. Years ago, my mother had shown me a magazine clipping. "Someday, I'd like to live in a house like this," she'd said. The memory hit me like ice water. She'd been planning this for years. It couldn't be. It just couldn't. With trembling fingers, I made the call. My mother answered on the first ring, as if she'd been waiting. "What's wrong, Alice? Are you at work?" "Mom, I got an email from the real estate company. You're trying to buy a house in my name?" "Yes. I just moved the process forward a bit. Once you approve it, it'll go through immediately." "Once I approve? When did we ever discuss this?" "It's a big house. The whole family can live there. You'll come back eventually, right?" My heart pounded wildly. It felt like someone else was narrating my life from their own mouth. "Mom, that's bordering on fraud. Did you use my social security number?" "Don't be so dramatic. I just submitted paperwork. The bank said they'd be confident with your credit." Something snapped deep in my brain. My mother's voice grew distant. The 9 years of effort I'd built, they were treating it like a convenient tool. "Mom, stop the process immediately." "Don't say stop. The approval is almost through. The family's future depends on this." "The family's future? Using my name?" "Not your name. The family's name. We're one, aren't we?" Words failed me. We're one. How much pain had that phrase hidden over the years? After hanging up, my legs were shaking. I sank into the sofa. Each time my back pressed into it, memories of the past surfaced. That hollow feeling during my final semester of college. Checking my tuition account. The balance. 0. I just borrowed a little. My mother had laughed. I could still hear her voice. Back then, it was also for the family. Since then, I vowed never to let anyone else control my finances. Working day and night. Cutting back on food to build my savings. And now, my mother was about to tear it all down. I wiped away tears and stood quietly. I would not repeat the same mistake, no matter how lonely it became. I would protect my name. At the edge of my vision, a copy of the contract seemed to waver. My signature, and beneath it the words, Lorraine Morgan. Suddenly, it felt like someone else's name. Hours later, a message arrived from my brother Brooks. You refuse to help Mom? What are you thinking? Everyone's grateful to you. Grateful. The word rang hollow. I paused, then typed a short reply. That's not my house or my life. When I hit send, something inside me quietly broke. Night fell, and rain began outside. Raindrops tapping against the window pane beat like a rhythm against my heart. I turned off the lights and steadied my breathing in the darkness. My mother's voice still lingered in my ears. For your own good. For the family. They were words of control disguised as kindness. At that moment, there was a sound outside the door. A car engine stopped. The doorbell rang. I checked the clock. It was past 9 at night. I looked through the peephole. The blood drained from my face. At the front door stood my mother, father, and brother, without umbrellas, standing in the rain. The moment I opened the door, cold wind rushed in. We came to talk. My mother's voice rumbled low. Ellis, the contract can't be stopped now. Signed for everyone's sake. Go home. Please. Think of it as helping the family. Water dripped from my mother's soaked hair onto the floor. My father stood with arms crossed, silent. My brother stood anxiously behind my mother. If you're stubborn, everyone suffers. We've already arranged the kids' school enrollment. Wait, what have you been doing on your own? It'll all be settled if you just say yes. My father's voice rumbled low. You're cold. Are you abandoning your family? I took a deep breath and looked directly at them. I'm not cold. I'm finally trying to protect myself. My mother's face twisted for a moment. Don't say things like that. You used to be such a kind child. Kindness isn't a word to be exploited. A long silence. Only the sound of rain filled the space between us. Go home. When I said it again, my mother began to cry. My father put his arm around her. My brother sighed. And all three left the entryway without another word. The moment the door closed, the world went silent. No tears came. I only felt something definitively change deep in my heart. I leaned my back against the wall, unable to move for a long time. The cold floor pressed reality into me. It was the first time the word family had ever felt this distant. Yet strangely, I felt no fear. Loneliness was proof of the freedom I'd finally gained. Outside the window, streetlight glowed through the rain. Gazing at that light, I whispered, no one will ever use my life again. The rain outside grew heavier. The sound drummed against the roof. In that sound, for the first time, the silence of this house truly felt like it belonged to me. Chapter 3. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The sky was still gray. What leaves on the trees reflected the morning light. I stood staring at 3 sets of footprints left at the front door. My mother, father, brother, their figures standing in the cold rain last night felt almost like a dream. On the table sat a wet teacup and the lingering remnants of last night's tension. The house was quiet, yet deep inside, my heart still pounded as if it were still fighting. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop. The screen's glow thrust reality before me. In my email folder was a new notification from the real estate company. Subject line: Contract confirmation, Ellis Morgan. When I opened it, an unfamiliar address was listed. Riverside Estate Unit 12. It felt like someone had forcibly pasted my name into someone else's dream. The attached contract copy contained my personal information, income verification, and loan approval stamps. The name listed was indeed Ellis Morgan, but it wasn't by my will. I held the mug, frozen. How could they go this far? My mother's voice echoed in my mind. For your own good. For the family. Those words were spells that invaded boundaries under the guise of kindness. I sat back down and immediately contacted the bank and real estate company. My tone was calm, but inside I was frozen. That contract was not approved by me. Please stop the process immediately. The person on the other end sounded confused, but the signature and ID copy match. I gasped. Ed copy? It couldn't be. I opened my desk drawer. The file case inside was empty. My passport and old ID copy were gone. That weekend when my mother came over, she had been cleaning this room. I was the one who unlocked the door. So that's how. The words rasped in my throat. All night, I researched cases of contract fraud online. I copied technical terms one by one into my notebook. organizing what documents would serve as evidence. Strangely, I didn't feel sleepy. I knew that knowing was the only way to shrink the fear. I decided immediately to consult the police and a law office. The face reflected in my laptop camera looked unfamiliarly tense. The feeling of standing up to protect myself was finally taking concrete shape. The next day at 11 in the morning, I visited a law office in the city center. The receptionist led me to a small conference room. The sound of the wall clock echoed unusually loud. The lawyer, Sam Leonard, had a calm voice with a sharp edge. Your family is trying to purchase real estate under your name. That constitutes clear fraud or identity theft. Those words landed with the weight of reality. The words family and crime standing side by side. My former self would have never believed such a combination. However, you'll need to prove that your consent form was forged. My mother likely has that copy. Then we need to secure evidence. I nodded. My heart was trembling. But there was no more hesitation. Sam said, Ellis, if you don't stop this now, your family will continue using your name in the future. This isn't a one-time problem. Those words ignited my resolve. When I left the office, the street was already bathed in midday light. Passing a cafe, I saw a family laughing together through the glass. My former self would have envied them, but not now. The shape of family isn't always comfort. Sometimes it becomes a cage that steals another person's freedom. That night, when I returned home, the answering machine light was blinking. I had a bad feeling. I pressed play, and my mother's voice poured out. Ellis, please calm down. Because of you, the family might end up on the streets. Your father's about to collapse. Everyone believes in you. I listened in silence for a while. That word, believes, weighed heaviest of all. Trust disguised as chains. It takes courage to break free from that. After the call ended, I took out a notepad. I began writing a list titled, What Needs to Be Done? 1. Formal contract with the lawyer. 2. Lock down bank accounts and personal information. 3. Written notice to the real estate company. 4. Send certified mail to my mother. With each stroke of the pen, my heart grew steadier. For the first time, I used the word strategy for my own sake. That night, the moon peeked through the bungalow window. Light filtering through thin clouds illuminated the quiet room. I whispered softly toward that light. I'm not a victim. From now on, I'll be the one who chooses. The wind swayed the trees. The curtain fluttered gently. In that moment, it felt like the long night was finally coming to an end. The control of the past, the guilt, everything quietly receded into the distance. This house, I won't let anyone take it. And this life, either. After finishing the consultation with the lawyer that night, I completed a long email. Subject: Unauthorized real estate application. The moment I hit send, some of the tension in my chest eased. But immediately after, my phone buzzed with a notification. A message from my mother. Ellis, the family wants to talk. We're coming to your house tomorrow morning. I had a bad feeling. The next morning, when the doorbell rang, I hadn't even finished my coffee. When I opened the door, there stood my mother, father, brother Brooks, and even his wife Marin. The entire family wore the same expression of righteousness. Ellis, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My mother spoke first. That house contract is for everyone's future. I silently placed an envelope on the dining table. It was official letterhead from Valley Vista Realty. At the request of Lorraine Morgan, we are processing a purchase under the name Ellis Morgan. That's what it said. My mother's signature was boldly written beneath my name. How do you explain this? My voice was quiet, but anger blazed inside me. My mother's eyes flickered for a moment. Then she spoke defiantly. It's to protect the family. The loan will go through with your name. Besides, you're single, so there's no point in you owning a house alone. We should all live together. The words pierced like blades. No point? You're calling the house I worked to buy pointless. Calm down, Ellis. My father interjected. If we live together as a family, everyone will feel secure. Secure? By stealing my identity? Silence. My brother Brooks stood up and slammed his fist on the table. You've always been cold. Do you have any idea how much we've endured? I endured his shouting and took a deep breath. Endured? You used my scholarship account. Your endurance was built on my sacrifice, wasn't it? Marin looked at Brooks in shock. You did that too? My brother said nothing. My mother stood, her voice trembling. That's enough. Are you going to make your family your enemy? You're the ones making me the enemy. At that moment, my father sighed quietly. That's enough. Lorraine, let's go home. We'll find another place. My mother drew a sharp breath. She started to speak but couldn't continue. Brooks remained standing, staring at the floor. Marin took his arm. Stop this. Dragging Ellis into your life isn't right. Honestly, I've reached my limit with the fights we've been having over your mother. At those words, my brother's shoulders trembled. My father nodded, his gaze lowered. I'm tired of Lorraine's methods too. While claiming to protect the family, no one was actually happy. My mother stayed silent for a while. Then she murmured quietly, I just wanted to keep everyone together. For the first time, there was a hint of regret in her voice. I spoke slowly. Keeping people together and sacrificing someone are two different things. Tears welled in my mother's eyes. Then my father quietly placed a hand on her shoulder. Let's go, Lorraine. We'll find another way. The three of them headed toward the door. Only Marin turned back and whispered softly, Thank you. There was a sense of resolve in her voice. My mother stopped at the entrance. She stood there without speaking. In her profile, I saw exhaustion I'd never seen before. You know, I always thought I was right. I thought if I used the words, protecting the family, anything was permissible. But protecting someone, it wasn't about binding them. Her voice was so soft it could have dissolved in the rain. Her hand was trembling. I didn't miss it. It wasn't regret. It was the weakness of someone who'd finally removed their armor. Mom, I nodded quietly, at a loss for words. Not everything from the past could be forgiven. But in that moment, I felt like we were facing each other as mother and daughter. My mother exhaled deeply and disappeared into the rain without looking back. After they left, I stood in the entryway for a long time. The sound of closing the door echoed like a heavy curtain falling. A few days later, an official notice arrived from the real estate company. Due to failure to verify identity, the Riverside estate contract has been terminated. I exhaled deeply and slowly folded the paper. Sometime later, I received an email from Marin. Attached was a photo of a small rental house with a garden. Children were playing joyfully in the yard. My brother watched them with a smile. Thank you, Ellis. I think we needed this reset. Tears blurred my vision at those words. My father had started a new life elsewhere. My mother sent me a short letter. I think I finally understand the choice you made. That was all it said. The handwriting bore traces of exhaustion and regret. I gently placed my mother's letter on the desk and closed my eyes. The past can't be changed, but how we receive it, that's something we can choose. Forgiveness and obedience are not the same. I would no longer be bound by anyone's words. I stood by the window, breathing in the night air. Outside, the trees in the garden swayed quietly. The house had finally regained its true silence. What had nearly been taken wasn't the house, or the money. It was my own name, and my life itself. But now, I had reclaimed it. Autumn deepened. The morning air grew gradually colder. Dew on the bungalow's roof reflected the light. A thin layer of frost covered the garden soil. I put on my coat and slowly opened the curtains. Light stretched across the wooden floor like a caress. The silence felt even purer. 3 months since that final confrontation with my family. The paperwork, the legal procedures, everything was finished. Each family member had started a new life in their own place. No one interfered with this small house anymore. Yet strangely, I felt no emptiness or regret. Instead, there was a quiet, certain realization. The feeling that my life is finally in my own hands. Around the time my exchanges with the lawyer settled, I found myself with a surprisingly vast collection of documents, contract structures, real estate transaction procedures, personal information protection, and the process of legal remedies. It was supposed to be just notes I'd written to protect myself. But before I knew it, they'd become a systematic, practical guide for self-defense. As I compiled the report, I realized something. The writing I desperately created to protect myself looked like a blueprint for construction when I read it again. Life's architecture can be rebuilt. For the first time, I felt like myself as an architect had truly come back to life. Later, the lawyer Sam laughed when he reviewed it. This is much clearer than the materials our new associates read. Your analytical skills are at a professional level. I thought he was half joking, but he was serious. If you're interested, I can introduce you to contract review and risk management support work. You can do it from home. There are clients looking for someone with your skills. I hesitated, but something lit up deep inside me. It wasn't fear. It was the feeling of rebirth. What I'd gained in knowledge and composure outweighed what I'd lost in that ordeal. Now I continue the work I got through that introduction, reading contracts, exchanging opinions with legal staff, helping people with designs to prevent being taken advantage of. The wisdom I gained to protect my house has become a tool to protect others' lives. My morning routine is set. I brew coffee, flip through the newspaper, open my laptop. I no longer need to rush to the office. The flow of time is no longer bound by anyone's convenience. At first, I even felt disoriented, but now I see it as proof of freedom. The work is remote accounting consultation I started through the lawyer's referral. I share numbers and analysis with clients somewhere in the world through a screen. It's solitary work, but I'm not lonely. I invest my knowledge and time where I'm needed, not based on someone's mood, but on contracts and trust. How much peace that brings to my heart. I learned for the first time. Before noon, an email notification chimed. Subject: request for continued services. Months ago, just one line like that would have made my heart race. I was afraid of being evaluated, but now it's different. Being recognized isn't being bound. It's proof of effort. It's standing on the side that gets chosen. I quietly typed my reply and hit send. When I finished a section of work, I added new words to a corner of my notebook. Financial Independence Plan, Chapter 2. It was no longer a plan of numbers. It was a chapter for mental independence, freedom of choice, and the courage to decide for myself. I smiled and put down my pen. At that moment, a bird sang outside the window. A small shadow swayed on the branch tip of the young tree I'd planted in a corner of the garden. When I first moved in, that tree was terribly fragile. It tilted repeatedly in the wind. Each time, I straightened its support stake, but now the trunk was thick, the leaves dense. I suddenly saw my own reflection in nature's resilience. Wounded roots do heal, with time and a little courage. In the afternoon, I shut myself in the study to organize my plan. On the notebook's cover were the same words as before, Financial Independence Plan. But the meaning was different now. Back then, it was a plan to escape. Now, it's a plan to build. Opening the pages revealed densely written entries. Obtain professional certification within the year. Expand remote projects to 5 per month. Invest part of savings in self-development. Among the neatly arranged numbers and schedules, there was one small handwritten phrase. Work not for someone's expectations, but for my own satisfaction. Looking at those words, a warm light kindled deep in my chest. By evening, the scent of the wind changed. Cold air from the forest gently passed along the housey exterior walls. I stepped outside the entrance and looked at the garden. Under the western sky dyed red, the young tree's shadow stretched across the ground. Beside it sat an old planter my mother had sent. I'd once thought about throwing it away, but for some reason, I left it untouched that day. In the soil, a single sprout had emerged. I didn't know who planted it, or when it sprouted, but that tiny life taught me something. You don't have to completely discard the past. Pain, wounds, righteousness, all of it shapes who you are. When the night breeze touched my cheek, I found an old teacup my mother had left behind deep in the house. Running my finger along its chipped rim, I caught a faint memory of that kitchen scent. Let's have tea together, she'd invite. But I always fled to work. That wasn't rejection. Maybe it was fear. I washed the cup and gently returned it to the shelf. I won't blame the past anymore. Someone's immaturity and my fear both are proof of having lived. You can't change others, but you can change how you choose. And this time, I became the one who chooses. At night, I turned off the living room lights. Moonlight streamed through the window, quietly illuminating the floor. The scent of coffee still lingered. I sat on the sofa and inhaled deeply. I remember that stormy night, my mother crying at the door, the voice shouting, "Are you going to make your family your enemy?" The pain of those words no longer pierces me. They're not a curse, just a memory. And any memory changes shape the moment you accept it. Now I stand on understanding, not hatred. My mother, my brother, and I, we all learned the meaning of freedom. For me, freedom means not explaining my life through someone else's words. It means choosing not by what to protect, but by how I want to live. The clock struck midnight. The wind stopped. The world seemed to freeze for just a moment. I stood and opened the curtains. The sky was filled with countless stars. Each point of light looked like a piece of a new future. Taking the mug in my hand, I whispered with a faint smile, "This is good. I can finally begin." Outside the window, the leaves rustled in the night breeze. That sound was no longer the murmur of fear. It sounded like a whisper of hope. A few weeks later, an email arrived from an unfamiliar woman. Subject: "I need help." The message described a situation where a loan had been taken out in her husband's name without permission. The wavering text reminded me of my own terror. I steadied my breath and wrote a careful reply. "It's okay. Let's gather evidence. We can stop this." The moment I hit send, a small flame ignited in my chest. The knowledge and experience that saved me would now become someone's shield. I felt it was another form of the life I'd reclaimed. By dawn, I stepped outside the bungalow. The eastern sky tinged faintly with red. Fog enveloped the garden lawn. With each breath, cold air filled my lungs. My body awakened from deep within. Down the road, a bicycle delivering newspapers passed by. An ordinary morning. Nothing special. Yet, how many years had it taken to reclaim such normal moments? As I stood there, I thought about all the people who might be trapped right now, in relationships that called themselves family, but felt like chains, in situations where love was used as leverage, in moments where saying no felt impossible. I had been one of them, and if I could break free, so could they. I placed my hand on the door and whispered quietly, "Today, too, I'll begin with my own choices." Those words dissolved into the morning air. A new day spread before me like a blessing. The key in my pocket felt warm now, not from the metal, but from what it represented. Not just a house, but autonomy. Not just walls, but boundaries I'd learned to defend. Not just a door, but the right to choose who enters my life. I smiled at the rising sun. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. Alice didn't just save her house. She reclaimed her right to say no. If you've ever felt guilty for setting boundaries, or been told that protecting yourself is selfish, this story is for you. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. Share this with someone who needs to hear it.